The Canadian housing market has exacerbated in recent times. Let's just say it's not very affordable to get into a house for the average Canadian. The government is stepping in to provide relief, but relief are they providing, or perhaps camps of concentration? Sean Fraser, housing minister for the Liberal government of Canada, is stepping up to the plate and saying that they're doing lots of things. You may recognize the name Sean Fraser. He's now the housing minister. He was the immigration minister who largely brought this problem upon us. And we're going to get into a lot of what that it means. But here he is on Twitter telling everybody how he's going to fix the problem.
Like millions of other Canadians, I live in a small town. This is a place that has the potential to provide an incredible quality of life for the people and families who call it home. Most people who live in the community aren't too far away from the essential services that we all need, whether that's a hospital, schools, a place to work, recreational facilities. We're starting to see challenges when it comes to housing that used to be in the purview of Canada's largest cities. But as we see the challenges impacting smaller towns too, we want to work with local governments to actually improve things so we can support housing solutions at a local level. That's why we've reached agreements with 60 communities across Canada. It's going to see them change their zoning practices to make it easier to build homes, adopt new permitting practices to speed up the process of building homes, and even considering new kinds of homes altogether. We're going to continue to work with local communities by putting federal funding on the table so we can solve the housing crisis not just in our biggest cities, but in small towns and rural communities right across Canada. Like millions of other Canadians.
Well, we'll get into what some of those new types of homes are later in the video. McMurph on Twitter replying, saying, "Yet you had 8 years to plan, but nothing happened until you got called out by Pierre Poilievre. Could it be that you have created the biggest housing bubble in Canadian history, and now you're just trying to save your greasy necks?" That's what it would appear now. Now, the housing accelerator that admittedly does really nothing. Here's Chrystia Freeland talking about it.
Sean has been zooming around the country doing housing accelerator fund deals. I think we're at 550,000 new homes built that way.
The housing accelerator fund doesn't go toward the cost of building houses. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes.
I think we're at 550,000 new homes built that way.
This is an ad from Pierre Poilievre talking about how their accelerator fund is not building any homes. But what's the real site in Canada? Well, here's Sono Fabench putting on Twitter, international students line up for a job in Mississauga restaurant. For a Mississauga restaurant. This is the lineup for that. This is Trudeau's Canada. You can thank Mark Miller and Sean Fraser for this. I'll leave a link in the description so you can share this out to your friends. But yeah, this is a lineup for one restaurant that's looking for probably one or maybe even two people to fill that position. But this is the way it's been going. Now, this out on from Wall Street Silver, sharing Armagillen's video on TikTok.
How many Canadians live in this weird cycle where you work just to pay rent for a house or an apartment that you're never at because you're always working? Well, you're not crazy. That's just the way it is now. In Ontario right now, where I live, the typical worker's bringing in $27 per hour before tax. With average asking rents of $2,178, this means they'll have to work at least 80 hours, so 2 straight weeks, before rent is paid. But this current rental crisis is caused by 2 simple factors. Unprecedented numbers of people are entering the country, and home builders aren't even close to keeping up with demand. And while the Trudeau government has promised to slash the intake of international students, Canada is still on course to bring in historically high rates of migrants for 2024. So Canada finds itself in a very tricky catch-22, where, due to the rising cost of living, young people aren't having kids, so our population is not expanding naturally. And as time goes on, we have more and more people aging out, entering retirement, requiring pensions, requiring more health care. So we need more taxpayers. How do we get more taxpayers? Bring in hundreds of thousands of immigrants per year. But that just exacerbates the housing problem and clogs up healthcare and other infrastructure, which leads to increased cost of living. So people don't have more kids. Population doesn't expand naturally. See where I'm going?
Giant population trap. That's where we're at in Canada. And where is it taking us? Well, it's taking us right to the third world, essentially. Pierre Poilievre pointing this out. These images are not from a far away third world country. This is Kelowna. After 8 years of Trudeau and the NDP, this is really the site on the ground in Kelowna. It is crazy. We have Darlene McHugh saying Liberal housing accelerator plan in practice. Good job, Liberals, changing not only how fast they're built, but how. Well, job well done, Libs. Sean Fraser helped create the problem, and now they expect him to fix it. That's insanity. That's absolute insanity. Amazing Zoltan actually going to the location in Kelowna where they're actually building these tiny homes. We're going to get into that in just a minute, because that's a creepy story. But let's have a look at this. The Globe and Mail is reporting, we do not fully appreciate the consequences of Canada's housing problem. No, we don't. The Canadian residential real estate market is like a ship sailing at full steam in the clear light of day, with the crew's eyes wide open into an iceberg. I'm not referencing a housing crash, nor am I referencing current acute economic conditions of higher interest rates, which have depressed real estate demand and resulted in lower prices, eroding billions of dollars of value. Rather, this is about long-term trajectory of affordability in our housing market, which is on a dangerous upward spiral. Its trajectory that higher interest rates have not changed. Now, this is crazy. The benchmark Canada against its group of 7 partners, and you will soon see how dire the situation is. We have the fewest homes per capita, but the highest home ownership rate, the lowest affordability, the highest population growth, the lowest production of new housing, and the highest cost to build. Well, you can thank all the red tape, regulation, environmental regulation that's added to all of this for home builders. It's really exacerbating all of this, culminating into this giant problem. At the same time, the development industry is hobbled by some of the heaviest regulation and taxation among the G7 countries. Now, the article goes on to say that estimates the number of additional new homes needed to restore affordability by 2030 range between 3.5 and 5.5 million units. That is insane how many we would have to build just to make it affordable in the next 6 years. We would need to build an additional 600,000 to 1 million homes each year until 2031 to achieve that goal. Over the past 10 years, the average number of homes built in Canada is around 200,000 per year, to close to the 3.5 million home gap by 2030. We would need at minimum to triple our capacity to build. And in that process, what are we doing? We are not tripling it. We're reducing our capacity to build as builders are less and less making new homes. Again, because of the regulation that we have in the market. Now, what do we have here in Kelowna? We have, well, it's new camp concentration, it would look like. This is a step towards what they've been doing to alleviate the homelessness problem, the massive tent cities that exist now. I'm going to have the amazing Zoltan on the channel in the upcoming weeks to talk about this. He's been going out and actually interviewing people on the scene there in these tent cities, which is incredible to see. Kelowna's new tiny home village will provide stability. Yes, says Minister. The temporary housing initiative is set to welcome people from local homeless shelters in the next 2 weeks, which is crazy. If you think of it, people are not allowed to build their homes because of the red tape and regulation, but they're propping up these homes that would obviously not would not pass any of the regulations zoning any of this stuff, but they're cutting a bunch of red tape to make this an issue, to make this a thing that could be built in Kelowna. It's really interesting. The province of British Columbia says dozens of people residing in Kelowna homeless shelters will soon find a place to call their own. Dozens of them. Well, there's thousands of them in reality. The province unveiled a 60-unit tiny home village in the city-owned lot of 759 Crowley Avenue in Kelowna's industrial district on Friday. Known as Step Place, the new temporary housing initiative will not only offer a roof over people's heads, but also range and support services, said BC Minister of Housing Ravi Kahlon. They're going to get support, they're going to get meals, they're going to get life skills training so that people can get stability in their lives, Kahan said. This is Kelowna's tiny home initiative. This is what it would look like for the average person that gets to go into these units. Now, what is this going to cost? Its estimated cost of each tiny home is $212,256. That's right. That's what it'll cost to build tiny little bungalows in Canada. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm going to leave this one off to you guys. What could be done to end this exacerbation of the housing market crisis? Perhaps reeling in our immigration practices. I know that they've limited student visas. There's a student visa loophole. They've been limiting that because of the attention that it's been drawing from channels like this, from other channels and independent media. Of course, not so much the mainstream media, but independent media has been reporting on this, drawing a lot of attention to it, causing them to change their practices on that. Now, will they change their practices on the average immigration, which is expanded to 500,000 new souls coming to Canada every single year, or will they continue that practice? Well, only time will tell. Leave a comment in the comment section down below, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.